Welcome to The Wyrd Way, a podcast about magic, folklore, healing, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sharon Ruderman, and your guide if you choose to follow The Wyrd Way. Hi, and welcome to The Wyrd Way. This is the first of the storytelling episodes, and I am really excited to bring this to you. It's a little bit late because, as you can maybe tell from my voice, I got sick. I was sick for like a week. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't talk. I'm not 100%, but I'm feeling a lot better. And so I am finally sitting down to record. First, a few announcements. This Monday, October 23rd, is the beginning of the morning ritual, a class that is the second time I'm teaching this workshop. It's a month long. Really kind of like everything I've got, I put into this class. It's meant to help you not only create and stick to a meditation practice, but to really create your own daily practice that would feel good for you, that would feel like something you're excited to do every day. It's habit building. It's a little bit of tarot knowledge. You learn a bunch of awesome different meditation techniques, breathing techniques, grounding techniques, so many different things to put into your spiritual toolbox. If you're looking for a place to join and to have some accountability through others, this is the class for you. It's probably the last time I'm going to do it live for a little while. I might put it on my website as like a recorded, do it at your own pace kind of thing. But right now, it'll be live. There's 4 live calls via Zoom starting this Monday. And everyone really loved it last time. There's a lot of people coming back. That's how much they liked it. I really loved teaching it, and I think that this iteration is going to be even better. Plus, you get lifetime subscription, basically, or however you want to access to the materials. It's definitely one of those things that you'll probably return to because it is a practice. So yeah, if you're looking for some help building, creating, sticking to a personal daily practice, come join the morning ritual, and you can sign up at wildwomenhealers.com. I think that's all the announcements I've got for now. This podcast is still pretty new. It's for anybody interested in spirituality, storytelling, modern witchcraft, tarot, divination, seership, intuition, living an intuitively led life, all those kinds of things, plus lots of other stuff. And one of the big main ideas behind this podcast is this storytelling aspect, which each month we will do a deep dive into old folk tales, old stories from who knows when they began, so long ago that they're just become a part of our culture. And so we'll look at them and try to figure out, why these stories are important. Why are they still being told? Why are they still being used? And how can we use some of the lessons today, or can't, or how can we change them? Anyway, I think it's really fun. I love mythology. I love learning old stories. I'm really sorry about the way my voice sounds. But I really wanted to get this very belated episode out into the world. And so without further ado, we are going to take a deep dive into the story of the Three Wishes. So, we all know the trope of the three wishes, or wishes three, or the genie who will grant you three wishes. But why three? What is the moral? What is the point of these stories? And where did it come from? Are there rules to the wishes? How can we apply these ancient ideas to our lives now? Well, we're going to get all up into that right now on The Wyrd Way. This is a deep dive into the story of Three Wishes. Once there lived a poor woodsman in a great forest, and every day of his life he went out to fell timber. One day he started out, and the good wife filled the pack he slung on his back, that he might have meat and drink in the forest. He went deeper into the forest than he'd ever gone before, and there he found a huge, great oak tree. Ah, that one will give me many planks of wood. He took his axe in his hand and swung it round his head as though he were to fell the tree in one stroke. But he hadn't given it one blow when what should he hear but the pitifullest entreating? And there stood before him a fairy who prayed and beseeched him to spare the tree. It was her home. He was dazed, as you may fancy, with wonderment and fear, and he couldn't open his mouth to utter a word. But he found his tongue at last and said, "Well, I'll do as thou wish." "You've done better for yourself than you know," answered the fairy. "And to show you I'm grateful, I'll grant you your next three wishes, be they what they may." The fairy was no more to be seen, and the woodsman slung his pack over his shoulder, and off he started home. But the way was long, and the poor man was dazed with the wonderful thing that had befallen him. And when he got home, there was nothing in his noddle but to rest. Maybe, too, it was a trick of the fairies. Who can tell? Anyhow, down he sat by the blazing fire, and he sat and he became hungry, though it was a long way off supper time yet. "Hasn't thou naught for supper?" he said to his wife. "Nay, not for a couple of hours yet," she said. "Ah," groaned the woodsman, "I wish I'd have a good link of sausage here for me." No sooner had he said the word, when clatter, clatter, rustle, rustle, what should come down the chimney but a link of the finest sausage? If the woodsman stared, the good wife stared 3 times as much. "What's all this?" she says. Then all the morning's work came back to the woodsman, and he told his tale right out, from beginning to end. And as he told it, the good wife glowered and glowered, and when he had made an end of it, she burst out, "Thou beest but a fool, Jan. Thou beest but a fool. You wasted a wish on something stupid. I wish the sausage were at the end of your nose." And before you can say Jack Robertson, the sausage hung at the end of his nose. He gave a pull, but it stuck, and she gave a pull back, but it stuck, and they both pulled and pulled until they had nigh pulled his nose off, but it stuck and stuck. "It isn't so very unsightly," she said, looking hard at him. Then the woodsman saw that if he wished, he must need wish in a hurry, and wish he did that the sausage might come off his nose. Well, there it lay in a plate on the table. And if the good man and the good wife didn't ride a golden coach or dress in silk and satin, why, they had at least a fine sausage for their supper, as the heart of a man could want. Okay, so that is basically how most of these stories go. That one was kind of like sweeter than most, but they all basically, have like a woodsman or a fisherman, and they come across somebody like a fairy or a magical fish, and There's usually a sausage that ends up on somebody's nose and they have to unwish it. Now, first of all, like most of these old stories, there isn't a totally conclusive origin of to where it started. From super ancient to futuristic to even modern silly themed jokes, there are a lot of different versions of magical beings granting 3 wishes. Most sources, including Wikipedia, point to the French author Charles Perrault as the first version of the 3 wishes in written history. His version is called The Ridiculous Wishes, or The 3 Ridiculous Wishes. And it's in a book, which I will probably not pronounce very well, but it's called Histoire au conte du temps passé. And it pretty much sticks to the basic storyline of 3 wishes from a spirit being that gets wasted by this guy's lack of foresight, and they just end up basically the same as they started off. I mean, maybe they have a meal, but that's about it. So yeah, I found this on Wikipedia, but I also saw it in a bunch of other sources too. I would like to note that the idea of a genie or a jinn is way older. It predates written stories, and I think it might even predate Islamic religions. I'm not 100% sure. They claim that they wrote it down first. There's some arguments there. It's a little bit of a different story, and we probably could do like a deep dive on the genie in the lamp. But I thought it was worth mentioning because in modern thought, I feel like as soon as you think of 3 wishes, you think of the genie granting 3 wishes to Aladdin, which I think it basically was written down, around the same time. So, who thought of it first? I am not sure. If you're interested in reading an early version of The Fisherman or The Genie from Arabian Nights, I will leave the link in the show notes for you. But these stories, The Ridiculous Wishes, The Arabian Nights, they're so close in origin date, it does make you wonder who came first. And by the way, I do want to repeat that I'm just talking about written stories. The oral traditional stories like predate this by a lot, but they all have the basic same plot. Someone gets 3 wishes from a magical being. The first wish is used to satisfy some kind of desire without much thought. The wish is granted, but the wisher realizes the result is not what he or she wants, and they realize that they want more or they want better. Or there's another person who points out that they are wasting their wishes. The wisher usually uses the second wish to change the first result, or they're unhappy with this result, or it ends up being a throwaway wish because somebody just says something without thinking. But ultimately, the second wish makes life unlivable or unbearable. And so the wisher has to use their third wish to basically go back to normal. And so it's generally thought that both the stories of the genies coming out of lamps, granting 3 wishes, as well as the classic folktale of 3 wishes from magical fish and fae, are what give us the common moral, be careful what you wish for. But I was like a little confused when I was doing my research because it's kind of saying be careful what you wish for, but I think there also seems to be a lesson about being happy with what you got. Like if you're unhappy with your current circumstances, wishing it was different isn't going to do you any good. So in other words, if you're unhappy, then the hard work of making changes is what's going to probably help you rather than wishing your problems away. It reminds me of a terrible saying that has been passed down in my family from my grandpa to my dad. And now, dear listener, I am passing it to you. This crude yet poignant advice, which is wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up faster. And I just finished reading a book recently that had like a similar like sort of thought about horses and wishes and shit. But yeah, it's all a little like too capitalistic and American dreamy for me. Like if you dig deep and do the hard work, you can keep your head down, keep your life clean, blah, 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 ideal picket fences. We know that that just isn't really true. We are born into certain bodies. We're born into certain restraints. We're born into certain prejudices and unfairnesses and privileges. This life is just not fair. And that's why I just don't believe in like manifestation. I believe in spell work. I believe in doing your part in co-creation. I believe in, I don't believe that like your thoughts can create, bad circumstances just because you had bad thoughts, I think that if manifestation were real, then anybody could manifest anything. And it's not true. Like we're all put in certain places. We don't have the same kind of starting off points. So I think that there must be something deeper here. Like, it's so funny. As I was doing the research for this, I was watching something on Apple TV. And like if you just like let it keep rolling, it'll play like a bunch of previews. And usually I'm just like zoned out by now, or I kind of like sometimes like watching trailers. Anyway, so a commercial came up for the Changeling, which is basically, it's not entirely, but it's also about the Changeling and the Fae. But it was a story about 3 wishes. And I was like, oh, well, I gotta watch this now, which by the way, highly recommend it. It's very good. It's I think it's just on Apple TV right now. I don't know. I don't work for them, but I really enjoyed that show, and I really enjoyed watching a different version of the classic 3 Wishes story while I was like being steeped in it, and also while I was sick. That's what I was doing, watching that show. It was another like cautionary tale, like be careful what you wish for. So the question is, what can we learn from these old stories of wishing? And why is it always 3? So let's dive into that part first. So there's this idea of the rule of 3. The rule of 3 states that using 3 examples, like in selling something or a speech or teaching or whatever, 3 examples will be remembered better than using, say, 2 or 4. The rule of 3 is a writing principle. And it suggests that a trio of entities, such as events or characters, is more humorous, satisfying, or effective than other numbers. For example, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, maybe you don't know this, but I am a video editor, video creator in other parts of my life. And so it also made me think of the rule of thirds in photography or video. And the rule of thirds says that your subject shouldn't just be like smack in the middle of the frame, but instead it should be at the intersections of vertical and horizontal lines, and that makes the composition just more visually appealing. And so you can also see it in storytelling, joke telling, folklore. As with any good story, there should be a beginning, middle, and an end. End. So 3 is also just an important number in symbolism and in spirituality. I mean, immediately I think of the Holy Trinity. It's a sacred number in more than just Christianity, in a number of religions. In ancient Greek, the number 3 was considered as the perfect number. It was the number of harmony, wisdom, and understanding. Ooh, there's the rule of 3 again. Numerology says that 3 represents curiosity, wholeness, completion, family, life stages, spiritual practices, psychic abilities, and enlightenment. The Hopi tribes recognize 3 phases of the dawn as well as 3 seasons. There are 3 pillars in Buddhism. In Celtic folklore, most of the deities had 3 heads or 3 aspects. In Norse mythology, there are 3 Norns, or aka fates. In, was it Macbeth? Yeah. There's the 3 witches, or the Wyrd sisters, which is partially where I got the title of this podcast. There's the 3 fairies in Sleeping Beauty, 3 ghosts in A Christmas Carol. Rumpelstiltskin gives the heroine 3 days and 3 guesses to guess his name. That jerk. And 3 bears, 3 pigs, 3 musketeers, and 3 blind mice. Just to name a few. In spirituality, witchcraft, there's a idea of the maiden mother crone. If you've not heard of it, it's like the life cycle of a woman or somebody who identifies as female. It's a journey into wisdom. And so, usually you start out as a young maiden. You don't know anything. You make a lot of mistakes. It's a time of innocence and naivety. Then you move into motherhood. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're, going to birth a child, but it could be a time where you become a mother to yourself, you reparent. And then there's the crone, old age, wisdom, the wise woman. I think we're going to definitely go deeper into that at some point, because it's actually I think it's a really important journey to talk about, especially for those of us who identify as female. It's just, I think you get a lot of aha moments in learning that story. I would say that this list is, it's just merely scratching the surface. Please do your own research. I'm sure that you'll think of your own 3s as you're listening. Especially if you're feeling called to, definitely do a deep dive. As a kid, I feel like I used to actually think that 3 was my favorite number. I have no idea why. I just really liked it, and it was probably the symmetry of it. I thought that it was a lucky number. And I think that it's a number in a lot of cultures that just seems to be really important. I think it's, it makes me think about relationship, how the 2 become one and they actually create the other. There's the 2 partners create the 3rd thing, which is the relationship. It also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that 3 is really an important number in witchcraft and spell work and ritual. We do things in 3. It's connected to Hecate, the triple crowned goddess, queen of the witches. And you bet we're definitely going to do an episode on Hecate, because she is a big part of my practice. And I was actually going to do a deep dive on Hecate for this first episode, but for some reason, the story of 3 wishes came forward. And because this is an intuitively led podcast, I had to follow. Oh, there's also the symbolism of the sun and the moon and the stars, the life cycles. I don't know if I mentioned that. But yeah, 3 is just a really important number. Not just in folklore, but in human history. So now I want to talk a little bit about the wishing aspect, or wishes. Because it's not just always 3 wishes. There's wishing upon a star. There's just a lot of wishing going on in folktales. And I don't want to feel like the major, there was the story of the 3 wishes is a major bummer. I kind of why do these jackasses waste their wishes, right? It's a conversation starter, what would you wish for, right? And you can't wish for more wishes. There's all these rules around it. And I can't help but feel a little disappointed when I found out what the origin story was. It's this silly story about a man who wishes for a sausage. Although in another version, he wishes for a bigger penis, which I guess is also a sausage. I don't know. That was like, I forget which version that was, like Swiss or Swedish. But yeah, it's basically just like ridiculous. It feels like an ego thing. And I think that just leaving it at be careful what you wish for is kind of not the point. I think that it's a little disappointing and a little disheartening. And I am here to say, keep wishing. I think that wishing, while it is not always helpful, it can be hopeful. And I think that hope is like a very important part of being human. To me, wishing is very closely related to spell work. Without the deep wishes to make changes in your life, I don't think that we would be doing much. I think that wishes are hopes, they're dreams. To quote Cinderella, a dream is a wish that your heart makes. Without dreams, without hope and wishes, we'd be like, we wouldn't be human. I think we'd be more robotic, just living at like surface value. I think that wishing is deeply human. It takes us deeper beneath the surface. I think that dreams and hope, they are what helps us to grow. It's what makes us have goals. I believe that if you can dream it, if you desire it, and you have the ability to put in the effort, that you can create it to a certain extent. I think that wishing is creativity, pure and simple. And I think the next time you blow out a birthday candle, I hope you wish for something amazing and then do some of the work to bring it into fruition. That's what spell work is. It's calling on spirit to hear your prayers, to hear your wish, and then you keep the ritual, you keep going, you keep making the motions. Like if you were trying to do, you were wishing for a new apartment, say. You can do all the things. You can write down everything that you're looking for. You can send out your prayers. But if you don't actually like go online and look, answer a few ads, it's not going to work. So it takes both, right? It's a lot about co-creation. That's the difference between spell work, witchcraft, and manifestation, the power of attraction. That's bullshit. Like, it's passive. Like, spell work is not passive. It's work. You get what you put into it. And so wishing and dreaming, I think, are the beginning of it. They're the spark. They're the spark to making changes. They're the seeds being planted. They're the intuitive nudges that want to help you bring and grow and create, bring something new into your life. So, like right now, I'm just very into sharing tarot knowledge. I think that it's something I've been studying for a long time, not so much teaching. And so I'm really excited about having this podcast to be able to just share a lot of my tarot experience. And so I've been inserting it into a lot of my offerings. Like it's in the morning ritual. I'm doing a tarot salon if you're in Santa Fe. It's an in-person monthly thing where we just kind of get around and do like study group together and practice. And then also a big part of this podcast is me sharing what I've learned along the way as being a tarot reader and studying. And so my mind just thinks in terms of tarot. And so as I was studying the 3 wishes, I kept thinking of certain cards. And so the first one, I think the first one that's the most obvious that came up for me was the 7 of Cups. The 7 of Cups, I think, is what the 3 wishes is all about. It's that feeling of wanting to get out of an uncomfortable situation by wishing your way out of it. And we all know that we can't really do that. We can't manipulate the universe in order to bypass uncomfortable lessons. What we can do is wait, be patient for the right timing, wait for the whatever it's teaching us to come forward. To me, the Seven of Cups is the same exact thing as the genie lamp rubbers, the woodcutters, the people stumbling upon the fae, and just like taking, right? They probably would have all benefited from a little bit of self-reflection, which is what the opportunity is in the Seven of Cups, is to just be like, there's nothing I can do about this right now. So I might as well not waste my energy wishing things were different. Instead, maybe I can spin it or at least surrender to it. The second card that comes forward is another cup. It's the Nine of Cups. And it's definitely different. It's a totally different world from the Seven of Cups. The Nine of Cups is more empowered. They're both sort of solo efforts. But the Nine of Cups is someone who has gone through a lot of their emotional work, their creative work, their intuitive work, their sexuality work, and they've discovered along their journey some really amazing, beautiful jewels about themselves. They're maybe at the beginning of a new project. They're maybe at the beginning of really knowing what self-love is all about. And it's like these little love nuggets that you've discovered, these little like tiny crystals deep in your own like heart cave through doing this healing work, through doing the journey, through going on the path. And the point is, it's a point of time where you're about to start something really big, but it's only a little spark. It's only an idea. It's just one of those times where if you actually tried to talk about it, it wouldn't make any sense to anybody else. And in fact, the world needs you to keep it to yourself for a little bit. It needs to be protected. Just like a seedling or a spark of a flame, it needs a little bit of care, a little bit of nurturing before it can come forward. And so that's the Nine of Cups. It's what I really see what wishes actually are these little sparks, these desires, these heart calls that maybe don't really need to be shared beyond yourself or someone, a really trusted friend or advisor. Maybe they don't need to be said out loud because they're not fully formed. And if you said them out loud, you would end up with a sausage on your nose or something to that effect. So I see the Nine of Cups as a helper for understanding what we're trying to do here today, which is understand a little bit deeper of the three wishes. The last card that comes to mind is the Five of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles teaches us that when we are making our wishes and our prayers, that we, rather than coming from a place of starvation and scarcity, it's a mindset thing. So rather coming from like a place of begging, coming from a place of empowerment, like you can't create change while you're still in the energy of the thing that you want to change. So if you're sad and you're lonely and you're begging and all you can see are the things you don't have, how can you possibly call in the things that you want, that you desire? How could you even know what that is while your eyes are veiled by sort of like this self-pitying mindset. If you look at like the traditional Rider-Waite Five of Pentacles, you'll see that there's like this, I think it's two sad looking people. They're like freezing cold. They're passing under this stained glass window of a church. And because they're focusing on the ground and they're focusing on all that they have lost, they do not see the Five of Pentacles floating above them in the window. And so sometimes it's just about changing like the way that you're looking at the situation. And I think that that is also in the story of the Three Wishes, is that if you're focusing on what you're lacking, how are you able to move forward? You're stuck in the past. How are you able to go towards the future if you're so worried about it? It's a little like, I guess everything's like be here now, be in the moment. But it reminds me of these stories that would be told when I was in yoga teacher training at the Bhakti Center, like without fail, one of like the gurus or the teachers there would tell some story about like the poorest lady in India who was doing her devotional work and wanted nothing more but to offer the little bits of whatever she had up to Krishna or up to people who were visiting her, or because it was coming from a place of service. That service was by far the like most holiest of acts. And in doing the offerings and offering what little they had to God or to in service was so much more rewarding than being served. It's just not a very Western way of thinking. But I think that is little bit of knowledge is in there somewhere. It's definitely in the Five of Pentacles. Yeah, I think that's all I really have. I think that wishing is just very important. I think that the old trope of be careful what you wish for is just not helpful. It puts too much on us as humans, gives us too much power, gives our brains too much power. We think random bullshit thoughts all day long. If they were just manifesting whatever we were thinking all the time, we would have a lot of cleaning up to do. Now, I do believe in like some of course, of like mindset stuff. If you're like stuck in a certain way of thinking, that's not probably going to help you make any kind of change, right? Like if you want to make change, then change the way you think. And I think that you can do that by asking yourself, what is it that I really, really want? What is it that I desire? What is it that I wish for? And then start from there. Ask yourself, what can I do to like bring this forward in my life? What kind of spell work would make me feel empowered to bring this forward? What kind of journaling or steps can I take? Who can I email or reach out to help me with this? It all starts with that. Not to sound like super cheesy, like I think that's what it says when you're like building your Squarespace website. It all starts with an idea. But it does. It all starts with an idea, like, if you build it, blah, blah, blah. But it's not like you're going to do harm by having bad thoughts. Like, what are bad thoughts? They're just thoughts. All thoughts are bad, according to like meditation. The point is to have no thoughts, right? And I think that when we start to stop identifying with our thoughts, right? I'm going to go on a little tangent here. If we stop identifying with our thoughts and we start moving into a place of the heart, move into the place of intuition. And if you want to call those things wishes, sure, go for it. If you want to call those things hope, I think they're just truth. They're actually the things that we should be focusing on. When the mind gets quiet, the truth comes forward, intuition comes forward. So I don't think you have to be careful what you wish for. Unless, it's all like materialistic and what have you, then yeah, maybe be careful what you wish for. But how about keep wishing? I think that should be the moral of these stories. Keep wishing, keep hoping, keep working towards what you know you can see. You can see this future. You've dreamed it up for yourself. Call it forward. I hope this makes any sense. I'm still recovering a little bit, but I was just so excited and I wanted to get this one recorded. And get this was a wish I've had to create this podcast. And so I couldn't just keep thinking about it. I had to put off the recording because I was sick. And I think that personally, I really needed the medicine of the story of the three wishes. It was personally just something that maybe needed to like work on me for a little bit. It's just that season. I know that I just got sick. It wasn't like, I was really upset about it because I felt like I had fallen behind on things. But at the end of the day, that this is when this episode is going to come out. That's when it'll reach the people that it needs to be reaching. And yeah, I think that the message is to pause, to look around, to ask yourself what is true and what is not true. What do I need in this moment? What are the small steps I can take to move forward? How can I do this in a more empowered way? So yeah, I hope you take a moment sometime in the future, especially in times of feeling worried or fearful. And I don't think it has to be like super long. I think just taking like a breath or two and just asking yourself, like, what am I so scared of not having? And what is the truth behind that? And what is it that I actually want? These are really big questions. So just let them mull over, let them float around. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found it fun. Let me know what you want to hear. Let me know what you want to talk about. Making this as much for myself as I am for you guys. So yeah, leave me comments, send me messages. hello@thewyrd.com. Yeah, until next time. You have been listening to The Wyrd Way, recorded, edited, and produced by Sharon Ruderman and Video Magic.